you have an idea, like you have a general idea of what you want to make, and then it just yeah, comes together. I guess it's a bit like magic. Let's have some strings, like, let's do it all. Let's go full in. Let's go all in. Actually, I've been learning Japanese for 20 years, but only recently did I really take it seriously, like for the past couple of years. Now it's just all self-promotion. That's what I discovered. It's like you have to big yourself up, which is really something counterintuitive for me. It's like it's not something I like to do at all. Talk about myself, talk about my music, and you have to present yourself you have to sell yourself, like present yourself in a good way. That's something that's so alien to me.
But trust me, this man is not alien to D&B. This is the sound of Naibu, a French artist who has been a favourite of mine for years and years and years. He is the latest guest on One More Thing, and I am going to present him in the best way possible. Those who know this man already will be skipping through this intro and getting straight into the thick of it. Those who don't, now's your chance to get up to speed. Naibu is an exemplary musician. He doesn't release that much music prolifically. In fact, his recent album, Sans Soleil, is his first release since 2018. But it's always worth paying attention when he does put something into the universe. His new album, for instance, features a full orchestra, a choir, and it comes wrapped up in a beguiling anime-inspired concept. It is a beautiful body of work, and if this conversation is anything to go by, we won't have to wait another 5 years for his next dispatch. Now at the controls of his own label Minato, Naibu is in a very different headspace to where he was last time he was releasing drum and bass, and it's a very inspiring headspace indeed. So get comfy, maybe grab a cheeky cuppa, and get acquainted or reacquainted with a modern day French master as we go deep in all kinds of directions and discourses. I'm Dave Colombo Jenkins. I have to apologise in advance for the state of my microphone during this interview. Must have had the wrong setting on because it doesn't sound quite as good as it usually does. You can definitely feel the vibes of the conversation. This is Naibu on One More Thing. Thanks for tuning in.
Recording in progress.
There we go, Naibu. How are you? And thank you for joining me on my podcast.
Hi, Dave. It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a very, very long time. It's been exactly 11 years since our first ever interview on
That's
Drum and Bass Arena. Where are
That's
you
crazy.
at? Like, before we start this deep dive into your amazing new album and where you're at right now, when you think about kind of 2013 and that kind of era, where were you at, and what comes to mind when you think of those times?
Well, those times, I was in France. I still am. Yeah, those times are amazing because I remember I was completely changing the way I was making music at the time. When I started making music, I was all about sampling and crate digging, finding old records, stuff like that. And I just wanted to make music like DJ Shadow or Eamon Tobin, but in a drum and bass context.
Yeah.
But then I moved on from sampling and I started learning to play instruments and getting some synthesizers, getting a piano. And around that time, that's around like right about the full EP that I released about around that time.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Where there was no more samples and everything was played, recorded, and that was a big change in the way I made music, and it changed the way also my own career evolved as a musician.
Wow.
So really interesting times. Yeah.
Wow, that's a whole paradigm shift. That's like completely changing your toolkit in a way, or the materials that you build with. So did you not have any musical tuition and kind of musical schooling before then? All of the kind of musicality and the instrument playing then that you've expressed over the recent years that have passed, that started then, or did you learn as a child as well?
Not at all. No, it's a big regret for me.
Wow.
Because the only musical tuition was basically at school, playing the recorder, and that was for a short time. So I really never had a chance to really practice an instrument. So it really came after I started making electronic music that I got the interest. I wanted to learn to play my own music, basically, and it's a real big difference for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's always really exciting when I speak to people who are like learning an instrument and they're adult kind of phases, because
Yeah.
you kind of feel like if you've lost a chance, if you didn't learn an instrument
Mm.
when you're in that kind of schooling period, educational period, then that's it. And so I'm always really inspired by people who have learned that much later on in life. For some reason, it seems different learning a musical instrument to learning a technical process, even though the technical
Hmm.
process is also a musical instrument in a way when we're talking about electronic music. But seems
Yeah,
different, doesn't it? I think when you've made that commitment, you're committed to that. So
for
you were
sure.
learning
Yeah.
the piano when we first spoke. You were learning the piano. Now to flip it to the
Mm.
current day, you've just dropped an album with a 40-piece orchestra, a
Yeah,
choir, and you've set your own personal benchmark at the highest possible level once again on a whole musical level. So that's an amazing leap in 11 years.
yeah, for sure. It's all about getting better every time. Ever since I started making music, every time I release a project, like it's no good anymore. I really need to do something else and do better. It's the constant thing with my music. It's I always want to make better. So yeah, this album is like really the best I can do now. And that's I've learned like for 10 years, I've learned so many things through making all genres, all styles. And yeah, so here we are
Yeah, here
for
we
sure.
are. I think that's like it's probably the it's the biggest trait of a creative person is that constant kind of drive to improve. But then do you ever get a point where you kind of look back? Because I get the same with a lot of things that I make and do and write and stuff. And I won't look at it and it's like, no, it's probably rubbish. And then maybe a couple of years later I'll pick it up and go, wow. In fact, I was quite surprised by some of the intros that I've done with the interviews that we've done in the past. But do you ever get a point where it's been enough time for you to look back and you can accept something that you've made and think that was better than I thought it was? Because we're our own worst critics, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's always a couple of tunes that are actually dear to my heart. There's a few, just a few, I guess. Yeah. But I rarely listen back to my own stuff. It's very rare. Like I'm always on to the next thing, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
know that you listen to a lot of things beyond drum and bass and things like that because our last interview, and I completely surprised myself with this, I'd forgotten the headline. Our last
Mm.
interview
Oh yeah, yeah,
starts
yeah.
with Debussy was a bad man.
He was, he was.
And that was the headline. I'd
Yeah.
completely forgotten about that. I remember that we talked about classical music a lot.
Yes, yes, yes. For
But when
sure.
we're talking about listening to things, we're talking, these are the kind of areas that you're drawing inspiration from, not your kind of electronic peers, but we're going
Yeah,
back way deeper, aren't we?
for sure. Like my discovery, like I never really used to listen to classical music. Like maybe as a kid, my mom introduced me to stuff like Peter and the Wolf, and that had a big impact on me actually. But as a as a kid and as a young adult, I never really listened to classical music. Like many people, I guess, my only connection to classical music was through film scores. Like
Yeah.
John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, this kind of people. But it's only recently, like a few years ago, that I just started getting into it. And once you get into it, oh man, you can't go back. Like it's really the ultimate kind of, if you're a musician, that's kind of the ultimate thing, really, the classical music. It's an endless pit of amazingness, of amazing stuff. And
Yeah. Especially when you
it's
consider the context, and this is something that we spoke
yeah,
about in a previous interview, is the fact
yeah,
that certain composers would be able to score, map it all out and hear it all in their
Yeah,
head and
it's a
imagine
whole
all of
different,
the
yeah.
instruments and stuff like that. It is. So this,
Yeah.
your discovery into classical music was
Mhm.
kind of running parallel as part of your learning process as well, then as a musician and as a aspiring composer yourself in a way then.
Well, it's all about finding something new to discover and just get lost into, because once you get into this, it's really endless. Like you just, and it's very humbling because you realize like you're never gonna be, half as good as these people. Like never in a, never, it's never gonna happen. It's just so amazing. Like it's really humbling, really. You're like, oh, what I'm doing is so, it's nothing. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
feel very small in a way, but at the same time, it's so inspiring. There's so much to take. It's really,
That's
really exciting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
beautiful. So this is the backdrop to a lot of your inspirations and your creations as Naibu. And you've hinted at this, you've always told me about this in lots of interviews that we've done in the past. But there's always, with that has come this kind of fear that it's always going to be the last Naibu record because you're going to jump into this whole other musical world because music is also part of your day job. You make
Mm.
library music and things like that and do lots of other musical things. So there's always, and I think because it's been so long, it's been quite a few years since your last
Yeah.
release. I was honestly worried that we wouldn't see another Naibu record again.
Yeah, I took my time. Many things happened in between the last release and this one. Like COVID happened, life happens, work, just the
Yeah.
workload just becomes bigger, and yeah, I mean, it was good to take my time. Like there was no rush really, to be honest. Like, and I really wanted to set up a label to release it, so that also took a lot of time. Yeah, but this kind of project, like this project really actually needed the time really. Like
Yeah.
when I started it, like I got, as I was making it, like I actually got new sets of skills, like, writing scores for orchestra and stuff like that. So it's kind
Wow.
of, yeah, it really had to take, and um it really needed time really. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Something of
Yeah,
this scale will always need time. And the fact that for the first time you're releasing it on your own label.
sure.
Now, you'd hinted in previous interviews that there was an album that you always wanted to write or that you were working on. And that I think you said in one of them that you might never release it, that it might never happen. But I think looking at the scale and the concept and the fact that you've worked with a 40-piece orchestra on this album, this is the album that you have referred to in previous conversations, I think, as isn't it?
Well, actually it's not.
Oh,
Actually, I have another album that I don't know what to do with. Like I've completed it like almost 10 years ago, like yeah, 9 years ago. It's a very personal album. It's like there's a bit of drum and bass on it, but it's not all drum and bass, and I'm probably gonna release it at some point, but it's so personal. I'm really like, who's gonna want to listen to this? It's the kind of album, really. It's very
uh,
self-indulgent. It's like, who wants to listen to this? Like, I really wonder. So, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so I shelved that, like put this on the side for so many years.
yeah,
But I really wanted to make a proper drum and bass album, like a love letter to drum and bass and the stuff I used to really like that had a big impact on me when I was a teenager in the 90s, like references to the movie Ghost in the Shell, really, really deep stuff. There is a vibe about like 90s Japan, for example, that's really dear to me.
mm,
So I really wanted to create an album that just creates a space that you can just that just refers to all that triggers. It's like that triggers all these emotions in me, like all the stuff I
yeah,
like. So Ghost in the Shell, Photek, Adam F, For Hero,
yeah.
Crust, have the strings, have the drum and bass. It's like, yeah, just a love letter to drum and bass, like the music I used to love.
Wow, and a love letter to your own past, a love letter to
Sure,
all the
sure.
ingredients that
Yes,
make you
yes.
you in that
Yeah.
type of way.
Yeah.
Wow. So can you pinpoint a moment where you thought this is going to start, or did you start bringing together ideas and did it come together in a much more organic kind of way?
Well, that's a difficult question because it's always a lifelong process, I guess, when you make music. So it never really, there's no really a point where it starts. But for this album, I set out like I started the first tune that I made for it was the second track on the album, like the longer it takes. That's like
Nice.
the first tune I and it kind of dictated a sound, like the cold kind of synth with the warm breaks. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I should pursue this sound. And from then on, I started like sound designing a lot of um kind of similar, like I wanted to create a sonic world that was very specific to the album. So all the sound design kind of has a sound to it. And then I was like, okay, I would love to just reference this stuff I loved in the 90s. So let's go for that. And then I was like, okay, let's have Robert Manos. Like, let's reference the stuff I love when they used to make the tunes like Seba and Paradox.
Yeah. I was going to say
Stuff I
there is
loved.
definitely a Seba
Yeah,
vibe to the longer it takes. Like, yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. And then so let's have some strings, like, let's do it all. Let's go full in. Let's go all
Wow.
in. So that's how over like a course of like 4 or 5 years, basically, that's what happened.
And
But
did you already have access to an orchestra through other career capacities that you have, or did you know going all in, and then there's
mm.
going all in with like a massive orchestra? Like, how did you get access to an orchestra?
Well, it's common practice in my day job to use orchestras for like production music. And it's actually very accessible. It's become because of technology, it's become super easy to record with an orchestra. You can do it online. You can do it via Zoom. You can do it on Zoom. You book a session, you get connected to the session, so you can talk to the conductor to give some, instructions, and there you go.
Wow.
Like you have a session like for an hour. Yeah. It's
Wow.
become really easy. It's
Okay, but
really
I guess
easy.
if you're going to have a session like that, you need to come with the annotation, the full score.
Yeah.
You need to, in order to make the most of that time anyway. But I
Yeah.
guess they're just going to look at you if you're an electronic music producer and you want to make this love letter to 90s drum and bass, then you're going to have to be very specific in terms of what you need. So you had to come prepared with what you needed, your vision, or did you go in with a looser kind of brief and sample it in the way that you
Oh
might
no,
have
no,
treated a
no.
sample before? No.
No, no. When you work with an orchestra, you have to be absolutely tight. Like everything has to be written as is. Like the musicians don't rehearse. They get the score, they play it. Like it's really amazing. They just yeah, sight reading. Like these people do this all day, all day, all week. They're really amazing. But yeah, so basically you have to write it doesn't matter if your music is electronic or whatever. The backing track doesn't really matter. They just get the score and they play the score, and then that's your job to mix it in. But so yeah, you just hire the orchestra, write your scores, like make sure they're tight, give it to them, have your session, they play it. That you just give them some instruction if you want something to be just in the intentions, for example. Like you're not going to change the notes, basically. There's
Yeah.
no time for that. So you really have to make sure everything is perfect and just give them your like, oh, I want more of a bit more dynamic in this part, like this kind of stuff. But yeah, really,
Wow.
that's like my favorite thing it's really stressful, but it's an amazing feeling, basically.
Oh yeah, I'd
Yeah.
imagine. So how many sessions did you do with them to begin with? And how long did it take you to get to that level when you were confident enough that you had excuse me, where you were confident enough that you had the right score for them to play. And it still blows my mind then that this is the first time that they read the notes. So they don't have like
Yeah.
10 minutes to kind of acquaint themselves with it and then come on the session with you.
Oh yeah,
Bam.
yeah.
It's new
It's
for them straight away.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It's like, professional musicians in this professional kind of media and film scoring world, like you have to be so it costs so much money that you really have to be. There's no time to second guess anything, you know.
Yeah.
So these guys are super tight. That's how they get the job basically. Um, so it was just one session, or just one session. You know, and actually I did 30 minutes. I just did 30 minutes with them. Yeah, it's quite expensive, so I tried to make the most out of what I could afford, basically. Um, but yeah, in 30 minutes I could record like basically five. You get 5 minutes of recorded music. So within this 5 minutes, I got like three tracks, like the intro, the song with Robert Manos, and the last track, and a couple of skits. Yeah. But you really
Wow.
have to plan this thing like really carefully. Like, you know, you have to calculate like how much time is it gonna take to record this? Like how many takes will they need? So when you write the music also, you have to be careful. You have to be mindful of how technical is it to play. So really you really need in this kind of context, you really need to like simplify, like make stuff that's really easy to play. If you start like putting all like spiccato, this is very
Mhm.
difficult to play, and it's gonna be a nightmare. So you have to
Wow.
adapt the writing to the kind of session you have.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
takes a lot of
entirely.
planning. Yeah,
How much planning went
that was a f-
into this 30
that was a
minute
few
session?
that was a few months of planning. Yeah, yeah,
Wow, that must have been really
of
exciting.
writing, and then really making sure everything's tight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I didn't have anyone to second read to proofread what I did, so I really had to be really careful. Yeah.
Well, did you try it out on like using like a VST like Contact or something like that then to begin with? Did you already have it in the tune? So you already knew what you wanted, you just wanted to replace it with actual proper instruments and an orchestra. So you'd already kind of tested it in that type of way.
Absolutely. Like when I write for strings, I have string libraries and they're pretty good. So I have a good idea of what it's going to sound like, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
technology. Like it really makes your life a lot easier. Like if I had to rely just on pen and paper, I couldn't do it, to be honest with you. I'm not at that level.
yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been like building up to Christmas for kids then for you when you were planning all of that and this one session. I mean, this is probably
Yeah.
when you started to get into this mindset of much more musically approached and not sample based. This is what you
Yeah.
were building up to from that very moment onwards, really. That must have been the night before you did that session with the orchestra. Was it, were you really excited? Are you an excitable person anyway, or did you keep a lid on it and keep it cool?
No, I'm an excited kind of person. I try to keep it cool, but no, I mean, working with orchestra is always a very special thing. Like I had done that before, like for production music. So
Hmm.
it was not like the first time I did it, but it was the first time for my own personal project. So
Yeah, your
of
first,
course, there was a bit more stress involved, like, excitement. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, hugely, hugely. And
Yeah,
also, this is something that you're paying for yourself, for your album, for your
for sure. Yeah,
label.
yeah, yeah.
You're fully invested in that
Yeah,
type of way. So it's a
yeah,
huge plunge, I think. And must have been really exhilarating doing that. And
for
then you've
sure.
also got a choir on the
Yeah.
album as well. Had you ever worked with choirs before? I mean, I guess that's not quite. Again, do you have to give them the musical annotations so they know how they're singing it, or do they get played the music? How did that all work?
Well, the choir is an interesting one because I didn't get to record like an actual choir, like have a few people in a room at the same time. I did it like separately and online. So I got four singers and sent them the parts and just then combine the takes in the computer.
Wow.
So put all the voices together in the computer to create the choir. So yeah, so it's like actually four people, but they were not in the same room. So the process is much easier, like that way. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
this is a brilliant kind of fusion of where we're at technically and like
sure.
some of the most kind of traditional deepest rudiments in music that you can possibly get, really. And this
Mm.
is what has combined the album. But obviously it is a story. It feels like a score.
Hmm.
It's an experience, and it's inspired by anime. And you mentioned Ghost in the Shell. So
Sure.
this is an album that is very much an album to be listened to from start to finish. So when
Absolutely,
did
yeah.
the kind of narrative and the concept start to develop itself and become apparent to you during the process?
Yeah, it's like I guess it's as you make it. Like you start with this idea, so there's gonna be one tune that comes out, and then from then on, you're like, okay, let's do something else, and you do a bunch of stuff, and then you piece things together as you make them. Really, it's there's never a point where there's like a scenario, like okay, I'm gonna write it's gonna be like this and like that. You just you have an idea, like you have a general idea of what you want to make, and then it just yeah comes together. I guess it's a bit like a like magic, you know.
Yeah,
You just have to
yeah,
keep working. It's all about just keep working every day and pursue like this vision you had, and then something will happen. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. It's almost like a kind of fuzzy image, and you're not too sure what it is. And then the
Yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
deeper you get into it, that image becomes clear in that way.
Yes, yes. It
I
becomes clearer as you make it, for sure. Yeah,
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 I felt that there might be kind of like a climate change warning within the concept and, within the world that we live. Like, again, within 11 years that we have been speaking, we are closer and closer to that clock to midnight. We're close. It feels like we're
yeah.
closer and closer to
Hmm.
extinction, essentially. I think
Yeah.
things we're pretty paranoid and worried about the world 11
Mm.
years ago. Things haven't changed
Yeah.
hugely, but there has been progresses in that we are well aware that we are ruining this planet. And that's what I thought
Mm.
maybe there might be a message. I didn't know if that might be part of it or whether it's more of a kind of narrative conception in terms of like the inspiration of anime and things like that.
Well, not being so specific, like there's definitely kind of a sense of I don't know, a sense of doom.
Mm.
I think probably COVID, when COVID hits, like was like the icing on the cake. And just grim, like kind of a grim future, like, you know, feeling of just hopelessness. And I was like, man, like I really feel so down. Like it, probably the album is going to reflect that. Like the music I'm going to make, it's going to reflect that that feeling. Probably like most everyone is feeling that. Yeah, it's like there's no hope or something.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that was the like, because Sans Soleil is no sun, isn't it, really?
yeah, yeah. It's actually a reference to a documentary film of the same title, Sans Soleil, by Chris Marker, French director. This documentary takes place in like early 80s, and there's a lot of it is in takes place in Japan. But I
Oh,
remember watching this like 10 years ago, and for some reason, like it's about, you know, this guy's obsession about time and memory. Um, but there was like a sense of kind of, I don't know, like a sense of doom. I don't know, I got out of it and it always stayed with me. And I thought, man, that would be like a perfect kind of match to express the kind of feeling we're going through, like
yeah.
in these recent years. That's how it came about. But definitely, yeah, it's not a, it's like it's not a positive kind of incentive,
No.
for sure.
But I think when we talk about time, do you think, or would you agree that whenever we, and this is literally a thought this has come to me as you were saying that when you're talking about time as humans, because we only have this insignificant amount of time on the planet, that it's always going to conjure up, there's always a sense of poignancy and doom whenever you're talking about time, because, even within the 20 minutes or so that we've been
Mm.
speaking, that's we're 20 minutes closer to death in that type of way. Like there's that kind of inner sense of that we don't have an abundance of it. So whenever you start talking about time, there's always a connotation of doom because we're constantly running out of it in that type of way. There's never enough of it.
For sure, for sure. But time is very, very interesting thing, and I'm very much um, melancholic person or nostalgic person.
Mm.
I really, I really dwell on the past, like emotionally, like a lot of things that happened in the past is very dear to me and it's very always very inspiring.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
feel that in your music.
yeah,
You can feel
yeah,
that in your music. And the previous conversations that we've had, really, in that type of way, there's certainly the sense of melancholy in your
for
music.
sure. Yeah,
And that, again, I think it's just this innate part of being a human is that we're always looking back. And then, in fact, this relates back to your first answer in times of improvement. We use ourselves as a reference point all of the time. So you're always kind of looking back and seeing, especially if you're
mm,
repeating a process or going along a similar process, you compare it, you naturally compare it, even without trying. It's reference points, isn't it? Even when we're just looking for like a framework, we're
mm.
comparing to a previous time that we've done something in a way, really, aren't we?
That's how you grow, basically, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. How
You
else
need
did you
to.
grow? How else did you grow during the process of Sans Soleil?
How else did I grow?
Yeah, I guess as a label owner to begin with
For
Minato.
sure. For sure now, yeah. Now I've got the freedom to release whatever I want. It's kind of daunting in a way. But it's liberating. Yeah, yeah. So now
Hugely.
I guess in terms of growth, I guess now I know what I want out of life. Like, there was a long time where you don't really know what you want. Like you don't really know what you are, like what you want to be. And now I have a better idea of what I want out of life. And it's not about like having success or anything like that.
No.
A lot of my vision of the world and how to live has changed. Yeah, for sure.
Is that a private vision, or what can you share about that in terms of
No,
your own development?
it's pretty private. It's just about there was a lot for a long time. There was a very ambitious kind of side to me. Like I really wanted to really. It's because you want to improve, you're gonna get better. You want to reach like you want to make film music, films. This kind of, and then you realize like man, it's not gonna happen. Like you really have to just settle down a little bit and just like man, you get so much stress. I got so much stress out of my pursuit
Mm,
that it became unhealthy, like really unhealthy. So it's about settling down and just realize like, whoa, your life is okay. Like what you have is pretty nice. Like if you can have if you can live like comfortably, do something you love every day, have someone you love, that's all it needs. That's all that matters. Like all the success, all the you want to reach this, that's a waste of energy, waste of time.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think so. I
yeah.
think so. It's a really, really interesting one. You've said
Mm.
you've summed up my view on existence,
Yeah.
really. I think, that, and I think we're all or humans in general are so obsessed with success and scaling up and
Mm.
money, 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 and objects, 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 and material stuff. But the real fulfillment is exactly as you said, when you're doing something that you love and you're able to pay the bills and feed yourself. Really,
Yeah.
anything else
Mm.
is a bonus. And
Yes, yes,
obviously,
yes.
that comes with commitments when there's a family and there are certain things you need to do in order. When you've got other people that you're responsible for. But essentially, if you can live that type of life, it's not about going bigger, 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 bigger all of the
Mm.
time. It bothers me that humans are obsessed with that. Because anytime, exactly as you said, every time I've tried to go bigger, it hasn't worked. But when you're trying to do something that you love, that's normally
Mm.
when the cool doors open because you don't expect them to, because you're not
For
going
sure.
around opening doors and looking for them really in that type of way.
Yeah, for
So it
sure.
sounded like then for a while, and during the times that we've spoken, the 3 or 4 interviews that we've done over the last decade, that at points behind the scenes there was a much more determined, ambitious Robin, really eager to try and set other benchmarks. That was, like you said, like almost kind of it was a toxic mindset for you
Yeah,
at certain points. Then,
absolutely. And paradoxically, it's also it was kind of the fuel to getting better and progress. It's like it's kind of intertwined.
Hmm.
I really wanted to achieve something like having success and it just feeds the actual music. Like it was really a fuel to making the music. But now the big change that I don't need that anymore. Like I don't need this kind of ambition to actually do something. It's like now that when I want to do something, it comes from a very different place and a much healthier place, I guess, and probably reflects itself in the music too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
There is a sense like you say, with the paradoxical kind of aspect of ambition, there is a sense you
yeah,
need that drive to trigger it. You
for
need
sure.
something, an accelerant to
Yeah,
put on the
yeah,
fire to get it burning in the first place. But then when the fire is burning, then you can step back from it in that type of way, really,
maybe,
isn't it?
yeah, maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you've got Minato now, your own label.
yeah,
Is this the very first time you've ever self-released then?
for sure. Yeah. I think I
Wow.
might have put some stuff on Bandcamp before, like for free, some old stuff. But it's like the first time, like I actually set up a company and did everything proper. And so yeah, it's the first time I actually released something on my own. Yeah.
That's a huge leap. And did you find that were the things, did you realize that there were a few things that you took for granted with labels? Because I certainly did that, setting up my own brand and thinking, right, okay, I'm done. I've done UKF for 8 years. I've worked for other titles before. I'm ready to do my own brand. And then realizing over the course of the last year or so, like, hang on, I really miss not having other people to do my social media posts for the
Yes.
articles or the admin, the costs, all of this kind of the dry side of things. Then, yeah, how did you find that? Or were you kind of aware, are you pragmatic enough to know there are going to be certain things about this that aren't really going to suit me as an individual, but in order to release my own music, I need to do this. I need to develop my own platform.
Well, I think the most difficult thing so far is like how to promote your music.
Oh, yeah,
It's a huge thing. Like candidly, you may think like, okay, people know my artist name, so if I release something, everybody's gonna know about it like instantly. But that's not the case. And it's like you just realize like the amount of work it requires, like promotion actually requires. Like I never did that before. Like when I released stuff on other labels, all I had to do was, answer some interviews sometimes and then just play out like DJ. But I don't DJ anymore. Like I stopped DJing. So like the only way for my music to exist is like through social media, basically. That's how people are gonna know about it. And that takes so much work. Like I really didn't expect it to be so much, such a time-consuming activity.
yeah,
Like it really takes away from actually making music. That's the scary part. Like because you realize, oh my God, like actually you really need to do this like 24/7.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
even posting about it once or twice, sometimes I think we
yeah.
assume, or I assume, that once I've made a post, everybody in the world knows.
Yeah,
And then I'd be like, no, didn't you see? And it's like, no, I
yeah,
wasn't on Instagram that week. And
yeah,
some
yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
don't check their social media all the time. And some algorithms being the way
Yeah,
that they are, we're only fed little bits of information.
sure.
And I think also, like, you think, all right, okay, well, I'll do those posts. It'll take me 20 minutes. But in actual fact, you're making a little video, you're making a clip, you're thinking about this, you're thinking about what you
Yeah,
want to write, you're selling your own music. So this is the most precious thing that you need to be
yeah, yeah.
posting about. But it's on such a horrible, disposable, cynical
Mm,
platform
yeah.
that you can get tied up and lost in that whole marketing process, which, like you say, takes away any form of magic of the creativity, really, doesn't it? And in terms of what's changed since our very first interview 11 years ago, is social media. I mean, social media was around back then,
Yeah.
but it did not infiltrate every single aspect of our lives and the industry and the creative process in the way that it has done now.
And it seems like the musical press just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
I remember like 10 years ago when you promote an album, I mean, you could get like your stuff sent out to magazines, and they would write articles or a print or have an interview with you, and everything was pretty much free because they could still make money. But now that I started this label and I was trying to think of a plan, like how to promote the album, and I was just looking around like at PR agencies and stuff like that, and there was very few of them. And also like magazines, blogs. I couldn't find anything.
We're
Like,
a dying breed. We really are a dying breed,
yeah,
and you know,
that's a big change. That's a big difference, and not a good one. Like
mm,
now, it's just all self-promotion. That's what I discovered. It's like you have to big up, you have to big yourself up, which is really something counterintuitive for me. It's like it's not something I like to do at all. You know,
yeah,
talk about myself, talk about my music, and you have to present yourself in a, you have to sell yourself like in a, you present yourself in a in a good way. That's something that's so alien to me. So it takes a bit of adjusting.
yeah,
Yeah,
hugely, and that's alien to most creative
for sure,
individuals, really. I think,
for sure.
especially, would you call yourself? Would you identify as an introvert? You know, are you naturally introverted? Because most
Yeah,
creative people are,
for
and
sure.
don't want to be under the
Yeah,
spotlight. That's why you make stuff, because that can be under the spotlight, and you can take a step away from it.
yeah. It's
You let that
painful.
express for
Yeah.
you, really. Definitely, definitely. I think like it's such a kind of tricky world to kind of navigate in that way, really. And PR companies are just going to be feeding to the same kind of, you know, the one or two platforms that still exist to
Yeah.
promote music. So that whole side of things kind of needs to change. But what you have going for you is, you know, a good kind of body of work and a history going back to the mid 2000s of releasing. And
For
every now
sure.
and again, on Facebook, on these kind of drum and bass groups and stuff, someone would come up with a let's have a Naibu appreciation thread or where the hell is Naibu?
Mm.
And I think, you know, you have got a fan base. So I knew you had something coming out a couple of weeks. And I think because we were speaking on an old email address of mine that doesn't exist anymore. So even if you tried to send it to me, you wouldn't have been able to. But I saw, who was it? It was Kez from Collective was
Mm.
saying like, oh, you know, he was posting that the new Naibu stuff was great. And I was frantically looking around for your email address and stuff like that, thinking like, I know there's stuff coming. So what you have, which, you know, new producers who could come in through now, unfortunately don't have, is
Mm.
the fact that you've had that time to develop some form of
Oh
following.
yeah.
So was that helpful in terms of releasing this album then? You know, I was glad to see you back. Did you kind of
Mm.
feel welcomed by any type of fan base, or that completely changed because we're so disparate and it's also
Mm.
fragmented and the internet is such a noisy place? Was there that feeling?
No, actually I was overwhelmed by the positive
Brilliant.
feedback, really. Like
Great.
I really didn't expect that. Being away for so long, like you come back and you know, you don't really know if people are gonna remember or if they really want to hear your music anymore. But yeah, man, I have so many like messages, comments, positive,
Brilliant.
really overwhelmed. Really
That's what I want to
surprised.
hear.
Yeah,
Go
really
on.
surprised. Yeah. But obviously, because all of that is due to the, as you said, like my back catalog, like I've been doing this for a while. So of course, some people will remember my music. Like if you're a new artist coming through, like, wow, nowadays it seems so difficult.
Yeah.
It seems so hard, like really hard. It's a really
Yeah.
different world. Yeah.
Yeah. They have to become, you know, a self-marketing. You have to tick every single
Yeah.
box yourself
Wow,
in that type of
it
way.
takes so much energy and time away from actually making music. That's the real shame, like as far as I'm concerned. That's the real downside to it. Like, of course, it's a great opportunity. You can do everything yourself, and that's how it's gonna work. But of course, it's gonna take time away from the music, from actually making music. So the music suffers from it, I guess. I mean, as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned, that's what I see.
No, completely,
Yeah,
completely. And people
yeah,
are more inclined to follow particular paths because they can see that there's a success formula there.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
instead
yeah,
of doing something completely different,
yeah.
they're jumping on something else because they can see that that works, and you can't blame anybody for that. And then at the same time,
Mhm.
it's also become a lot easier for people to make music, and things like Splice exist now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's almost like a pre-made cake mix that you just bung in a
Yes,
bowl and mix up and put in the oven, and then there you go.
it can be like
Um,
that. Yeah.
so there's also that. There's sometimes in the people when music becomes such a shouting match, like it
Mm.
doesn't matter over the quality. It's who shouts the loudest in that type of way. So it can kind of feel for anybody who is a creative individual who's really trying to push something that they've
Mm.
made and it's deeply
Yeah.
personal to them. You almost feel like you're fighting a losing battle right from the start, which isn't a good place to be in mentally as a creative person.
It's brutal. It's brutal to be. Yeah, it's really, really tough.
How
Really
do
hard.
you look after yourself in that type of way? Like your music, the creative process takes up all of your time as a job as well.
Yeah.
So how do you clear your mind and how do you put yourself in the best mindset really for creativity?
Well, I exercise. That's this. That's the key. Like, for a very long time, I used to not exercise at all, like for years, and it took its toll on my body and health. So in recent years, I've learned that, and getting older, like you feel it anyway. Like if you don't have a regular kind of exercise, you just feel like, you don't feel good, like in your body and in your mind. So that's the secret, really. Just do something else. Exercise and do something else. Like I got back into my Japanese, like I learned Japanese. That takes me away. I took on photography as well, the past
Wow.
year. That's amazing because, like, it's another creative thing, but I don't have any I don't expect anything from it. Like it's really pure enjoyment, just.
That's what I love. Hobbies for the
Yeah.
sake of hobbies. Just
Yes.
a
Yes.
pastime.
Very important.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that comes up so often with
Yeah.
so many people in interviews, but like not everybody who has a guitar will play or wants to play on the pyramid stage of Glastonbury.
Mm, sure.
Not everybody who has some nice watercolors wants to have, a work of art in a gallery. We can just do stuff for fun. And I think because of the
Yeah.
economic pressures and late stage capitalism and the way that the world is, and also all of these messages that we're getting from media and the internet, and you could be a superstar, you need to do this, everything is a side hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
now is I did a painting. I took my mum on an art class and I did some watercolors and I did a really nice painting. And a few people were like, "Oh man, yeah, you should start selling paintings." I was like, "No, I've just spent 25 years trying to establish myself as a music journalist. Like, if I paint,
Yeah.
I might frame one in my house. I might give one to my mum as a gift or something like that. But that wasn't the first thought that came to
Mm,
my mind. For somebody else, it was like, "Oh man,
mm,
you should put them up on your Bandcamp. You should." No, no, no. It's like,
mm.
no, this like hobbies, having that complete outlet where there is no end game. It's just self-improvement and self-fulfillment. And I think there's so much to be said for that we kind of forget, really, I think, in amongst all of the distractions of the modern age.
Mm. It's super important. You really have to have fun, basically, doing something. Because, of course, like music starts, like when you start making music and it's your thing, it's like it's fun. But then there's lots of pressure that comes with it. Like if you take it, if it becomes your job, it's like, of course, there's gonna be fun, but it's not all fun and games. So you're gonna attach like some stress to it, and it's gonna taint kind of the practice a bit for yourself. But
Yeah,
so it's super important to have another thing to do. So in
brilliant.
my case, yeah, photography is a lot of fun.
Go on. I
It's
love
really
that.
cool. Yeah,
And
yeah,
you've
yeah.
learned Japanese or you're learning Japanese as
Actually,
well?
I've been learning Japanese for 20 years, but only recently did I really take it seriously, like for the past couple of years. Yeah,
Brilliant. I've got
yeah,
theories on why Japan has got such an allure for so many of us. And I've
yeah,
spoken to people like Debridge about this because I know that he's
yeah,
fascinated and has been over there
yeah.
many times. and it's the two traditions, and in fact it's the two things that have kind of characterized a lot of the process for your albums, and that's deep sense of history and discipline and tradition, and that like real adherence to tradition, but also Japan's thirst and that kind of for technology and progress. You know, you've got that huge contrast there between some of the oldest kind of traditions and their strong sense of culture, but also they're thrusting into the future, like kind of cities like Tokyo instantly kind of bring about like ideas or like visions of kind of Blade Runner in that type of kind of futuristic neon city type of way. And so much amazing technology has come from there. So you've got these two really powerful characteristics and all of the art and everything that comes between them. That's why I feel Japan has such a special place in so many, and inspires so many people and has a special place in so many creative people's hearts, especially within drum and bass, because those are two really important characteristics. Does that resonate with you in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's Japan is like the land of contrast and sometimes paradox as well. It's like
Yeah,
as you said, like the culture is just so deep and it's so strong and runs so deep in everyone there. And also this like they embrace like progress, like they embrace technology so much. So it's a fascinating place, and even like aesthetically, like aesthetics are so important for Japanese. They just they care about all the details and everything has a beauty. It kind of has a beauty. Like even if you see like the most kind of crazy urban landscape, like which to some people may look ugly, like to me it looks absolutely beautiful. Like
yeah,
there's so much like I don't know. It's like there is soul in everything there. Like everything has a soul.
yeah.
It runs really deep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that. Have you actually been able to go out to Japan through work or as a tourist or as a
Oh
traveler in
yeah,
any
yeah.
way?
I've been many times. Yeah, and actually, my girlfriend is Japanese, so I was there actually like a month ago. I
Oh,
stayed there for a
wow.
couple of months. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I'm
Can you
gonna be
speak
there.
can you speak fluent Japanese with your
No, no.
partner then?
I can speak like the daily stuff. But if we start talking about like philosophy or stuff, I can't. But yeah, in a daily the daily life is okay. I can manage. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. I've yet to go out there. I've never been able to afford to go out
Oh
there or
man,
anything. I've always hoped that work would take me one day. Seems to take me to all the places I want to travel
man,
to.
that's a
But I know
place
that
to
I
visit for
will.
sure.
Take me back. What was it like the first time? Because this has been a source of inspiration for you long before Naibu existed. And actually
Yeah,
thinking
it's
about it, is Naibu inspired? That name is probably inspired by perhaps the Japanese language. Perhaps it even translates to something I'm thinking I should have done my research 11 years ago. I've never looked up the meaning of Naibu. Or if I have, I've forgotten.
yeah, it's a Japanese word that means inside. It's
Hey,
actually not the reason why I chose, but let's keep it. Yeah, let's keep it here.
yeah.
It means inside in Japanese. Yeah,
Brilliant.
and
Internalizing like everything that's inside your mind and inside your intentions and your
yeah,
ideas,
yeah.
perhaps. What was it like the
Uh-huh.
first time you went out there then? That must have been again a bit like working with an orchestra for the first time on your own album.
Yeah,
A real moment.
it's like dreams coming true, This is the kind of feeling really. And it's the interesting thing about Japan is like the first Asian country I went to was actually not Japan. The first time I went to Asia was in South Korea.
Oh wow.
And there is a very deep story about South Korea and me and drum and bass and my path. So the first time I went to Asia, before I ever went to Japan, was I went to South Korea. And the story is, I went to South Korea because of a DJ, like most people will know, called Hydro.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. So the story is like around 2004, 2005, Hydro released a track with Break called Immaculate on Quarantine. I heard that track like on Radio One or something like that, and I was just blown away. So I went to Dogs on Acid, the forum, the message board,
Yeah.
and there was a thread about the track, and I just posted like, "Wow, amazing track," something like that. And in my signature on the form, when you post on the on message
Mm.
board, you can have a signature. In my signature, I had a link to a track I did at the time, which I called Seoul, the city,
Yeah.
the capital of South Korea. So the track title was Seoul, and Hydro was living in Seoul at the time of this message, and he read the message board and he saw the track title in my signature, checked it, and he got in touch with me like, "Wow, I like this track. Are you in Seoul? Do you live in Seoul?" I was like, "No, I'm in France." But we started chatting. I couldn't believe it. Like,
Brilliant.
man, Hydro, the man who made Immaculate, like he's talking to me. That's something like that. So then we stayed in touch, sent each other some music, and then he visited me with his girlfriend. Like he came to France with his girlfriend and just stayed like for a night or two. And then the year after, I just went to visit him. Like it was like he offered me to come and visit him in Seoul. So I took on the offer
Brilliant.
and just went to Asia for the first time. And the story doesn't stop here. Like this whole thing is just like all serendipity. So Hydro is actually from Guernsey in the
Mm.
Channel Islands, and they have a crew there making drum and bass parties at the time. And they booked Fabio for a party like around that time. And they had Fabio in the car, and they played music, and they played some of my tunes, some of my early tunes. And Fabio was like, "Oh, who's that? What's that?" And from that car moment, I got signed to Creative Source. Like Fabio called me and signed the track. So that was the start of my career. All from this
Wow.
like comment on Dogs on Acid.
Wow.
That's just every time I think about it, it just blows my mind. Like,
I love that. The
yeah,
ripples of that are
yeah, yeah.
amazing. And
Just
actually,
crazy.
to kind of, like to big up forums, but forums
Yeah,
would have been seen in the same way that we were talking about social media just moments
yeah,
ago. Forums would have been seen by a lot of artists in the 90s as a complete waste of time and annoyance, a disturbance in the creative process and the
yeah,
relationship between the fans, because for once, fans could all talk and share and actually become critics and try and uphold a benchmark of their own. And I really like the way that forums, because they're so proud, like anybody on a community of music fans is in, like in that type of way, they are the most passionate people, so they know what they want from drum and bass. And I can't, it's unfathomable the amount of careers that would have launched from Dogs on Acid and Drum and Bass Arena
probably. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because of the amount of little connections that no one will know
Mm,
about or anything,
sure.
like mad stories like that, even
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
you and Hydro linking, that's
yeah.
amazing. But then to take it back even further to you being signed by Fabio of all people
Yeah.
as well, like that's
Yeah.
amazing. You can't, there's
Yeah.
no way that could be orchestrated or contrived in any type of way. That's the natural process of these links and the way that we all kind of bounce off each other like atoms in a way, really. And sometimes we stick to each other, and other times, we miss each other completely, really, in that way. Amazing. Have you got any other kind of stories in that type of way then, where something has happened which you couldn't possibly have imagined when you first started or when you made that first action, if you know what I mean?
Not anything of that magnitude, I guess. Like, I can't think of anything else. This story is really like it's like the genesis, like when I started out. Like, well,
Wow.
another one was probably also meeting like Martin. At the time, what his name was DJ Pan. That was kind of funny as well. Like um, he used to play on Bass Drive as DJ Pan when he was living in the Netherlands, and I was just hanging out on the message, like on the message board, like the instant kind of live chat room, like the chat room on Bass Drive,
Mm-hmm.
and just started chatting to some girl, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you should send this music to DJ Pan. He's really cool." Then I didn't know anything about like who he was, or just sent music to DJ Pan, and he was really nice. Played some of my stuff on his show, and we used to talk, and he actually taught me like through like a period of like a year or two. He introduced me to all the Detroit techno and all this stuff. That was super
Wow.
amazing. So big up,
Wow.
big up Martin, aka DJ Pan. And actually, also got a signing on Marcus Intellect's Solar through Martin as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
These connections, man, it's so random. Like
Yeah.
everything at the time was kind of still a bit wild. Like
Yeah.
things could happen. Probably nowadays things happen that way as well. But like now I'm you know
Oh, they still
I'm too
do.
old.
They still do,
Yeah,
I
for
think.
sure.
They still, especially if you've got a bit, when you put something out there on the internet and then kind of stuff comes back.
It always feels
Um,
magical. Yeah, it's like there's a bit of magic involved for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it can
yeah, yeah.
also, in the world of a kind of freelance creative, something like that, like somebody like
Hmm.
Marcus getting in touch with you or somebody, or,
Hmm.
as a result of stuff, can kind of
Yeah,
reaffirm your faith in the infrastructure that we're in, that sometimes it can be months and months and months, and you
yeah,
just don't feel like you're getting anywhere. And then suddenly someone has heard or read, so, in my case, it'd be read or seen a video or something. In your case, it's some music where you can't there's no way you could bank it, and suddenly you've got this invitation or an offer or some
sure.
type of cool thing has come through on one of them, your
Yeah,
inboxes, and it reaffirms your faith. It's like, right, okay, cool, we are going in the right direction, and you kind of you can never ever forecast when that's going to happen. It just happens, and it gives you that boost that you need to carry on in that type of way. And that's something amazing for anybody, listening, is the fact that, you've been on Creative Source and Solar and right at the start of your career.
mm,
That's, you can't get a better foundation or references than those two imprints and those
sure,
two
sure.
individuals, really, in terms of like authenticity and how true
Mm,
they've stayed to the craft. Marcus, rest in peace, and Fabio,
yeah.
you don't get much higher than that or more respected than that in our culture.
It felt like such luck. Like it's just still to this day, like you think about this and you're like, wow, how did this happen? Like really?
Brilliant. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So what happens next now? Because I would imagine this album was finished a little while ago, and
Yeah, it takes some time, yeah, to come out for
are
sure.
you already? Every time we've done an interview, there's always been, you're always neck deep in the next project, multiple projects.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I'm gonna release more drum and bass. Yeah, I'm still working on it. Like, bear with me, I'm always been a bit long. So yeah, but it's
Longness
gonna,
is
yeah.
longness is important though, I think. There's that kind of feeling that you need to be active all of the time. You need to be doing
Well,
this, you need to be releasing.
that's the thing I can feel like this now that I've got my own label, this new social media kind of self-promotion model, just it's very new to me, and I understand now the pressure people get to release like singles like every month, and I understand it now. I know that's how you have to work now, and that's very difficult for me to adapt to. I'm gonna try to be more regular, more consistent, but still, it's not easy for me. Yeah, yeah,
No, it can't
not
be,
easy.
because that's not how you've worked, and you're
Yeah,
never going to put out something that you're not 100% happy
that's the
with.
thing. That's the thing. Yeah, for me to like, as I progress, for me to be happy with what I do, it takes a lot of time and effort. Like the more it's getting worse. Basically, it's you should think you could think like the better you get, the easier it is to just churn out tunes and stuff. But actually, it's like the complete opposite. Like the more you advance, the more you become picky, and the less you're excited about an idea because you've heard many things, yeah, before.
Yeah,
You've heard all
yeah.
these things before. So to get excited takes like a bit of luck and time. So it actually becomes more difficult to be satisfied. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah,
Oh, massively. Are there
yeah,
things though that you're working on at the moment that you are excited about?
yeah, for sure, for sure. That's all I can say.
No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's cool. That's
yeah,
good to hear. That's good to
yeah.
hear that it's not going to be another kind of 4 years, 5 years since the last release. I think it was
Yeah, I'm
2018.
I'm gonna try to release yeah, more frequently. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go on, that's amazing
Yeah.
news. I mean, essentially, that's why we're having this interview, to make sure that we've not lost you, that this isn't just a one-off, that you're still around, and that we can
Yeah.
still expect more Naibu material in the future, really.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
brilliant. Do you think you'll ever invite other artists onto Minato, or is this much more of a kind of personal? imprint in the same way that Caliber has signature or something like that.
For now, like I really want to bring other people, but as collaborators, like remixes or collaborations, having another artist album or single, like for now, like my structure is a bit like it's it's difficult as it is, like just for my own stuff. If I have to bring like other people, and you have to have like an accountability as right now, I don't really have time for that. So I just keep it just for my own stuff and collaborations. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a bit of a more in practical terms, basically, for
yeah.
now. I'm not my structure is not ready to kind of release other people right now. Yeah.
And
But
as
I
you
would love to
say,
though. Yeah.
there's a responsibility there as well. And the
Yeah.
minute you bring other people on boards, then there has to be. And
Yeah.
then again, that, yeah, completely changes the energy and the intention and the focus of the label and what you want to do with it, why it exists in the first place.
Mm. And I always want to be fair. Like I really want to, if there is some money, like I want people to have the money. Yeah. When I collaborate with someone, I pay everyone. Like I don't want to be the guy like, oh yeah, please do me a favor. Like
No,
it's tough as it is for artists, you can't really do stuff for free. I think it's unfair. So that takes a lot of organizing and commitment. So just for now, keeping it simple, basically. Yeah.
brilliant. And I
Yeah.
think in the spirit of keeping it simple, I won't convolute things with another question. I think we found out what we need to find out about the album, about where you are, and about how you are as well, because it's been so long. So, is there anything else that the world needs to know about Sans Soleil or about Naibu in general, really?
Well, no, I don't. I don't know. And, that's a tricky question. Like nothing comes to mind.
No, it's just good to know that you're busy making music, that you're still inspired. And I would
Yeah,
say, still as ambitious as ever with your creations, but in a much healthier mindset by the sounds of things, really. Like
for
this is
sure.
real
Yeah,
ambition, really. And I'm excited to hear what
yeah.
we hear next. And congratulations on such an accomplished album.
Oh, thank you, Dave.
Cool. Thank you very
Thanks
much
a
for your
lot, man.
time. That's been brilliant. And thank you to everybody who's been listening as well. This has been the One More Thing podcast.